All right, I'm Lori Carlson. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator at Can Do Canines. We have been around for 29 years. Next year will be our 30th anniversary, so kind of exciting. We train assistance dogs for people with disabilities, and we give them to them at no charge. We train for 5 types of disabilities. We train hearing assist for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. So they will alert them to smoke alarm, being the most important sound, someone at the door, phone, oven timer, alarm clock, name call, all those different things. We train for mobility assist for people who have mobility issues, and that could be anyone who is using a wheelchair to someone who is still mobile but has some issues. And I won't steal Mark's thunder because he's going to talk about that. But those dogs are trained to pick up items, turn on lights, open doors, go get help, get an emergency phone. They can take laundry out of the front loader. I mean, there's just really varies with mobility. Yeah, people seem to really like that laundry thing. But it really depends on the client and what they need as to what we can train for mobility assist. There's a wide range of choices for that. We train for seizure response. This is for people who have a seizure disorder. You hear the stories about the dogs that they let someone know they're going to have a seizure 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before. No one knows exactly what that is. Is it a smell? Is it electrical? Is it body language? So if you don't know what it is, it's very hard to train for that. So we are more seizure response. So when someone is having a seizure, they will lick their face, bring them out of the seizure faster. They'll lay next to them or on top of them, which kind of centers them when they're coming out of it because they don't know where they are or anything, so it kind of helps them just be centered. They'll go get an emergency phone because sometimes they can't get up right away, so they'll bring a phone to them, or if someone's in the house, they'll go get help. They also have identification and medication in a backpack on their vest, so if they're out in public and they have a seizure, someone, a paramedic or whatever, will be able to look and get that information. We also have an example of that is Terry, who has Brody, one of our assistance dogs. She was a police officer that was in a house explosion, and she had a traumatic brain injury, and so she had seizures. And she didn't know when she was going to get them. She just would get them and go downstairs, she broke bones, she lost teeth, really dangerous. They put a vagus nerve implant in her chest, the idea being there's a sister magnet, so when she has a seizure, you place that magnet over and it stops the seizure right away. Problem is, she doesn't know when she's going to have the seizure, so it sat in a box when she sat at home. She contacted us and asked if there was something that we could do, and what we figured out is we trained our dog Brody. He has that battery on his collar. When she has a seizure, he lays across her and does a snuggle and stops the seizure. So she's now going out and about, and she actually used to be a police officer, so she's talking with the police academies about invisible disabilities, because looking at her, you would not know that she has a disability. So you can't stop her now. She's out and talking to everybody. So we train for diabetes assist dogs. It's not just that people have diabetes, the clients that we help, it's that they have type 1 and something that's called hypoglycemic unawareness. They've had diabetes for so long, or they have a medical condition that they can't tell the lows anymore. Normally when you go low, whether you haven't had lunch or you're diabetic, you get shaky, you get sweaty. There's symptoms that you feel that you know you got to check your blood sugar, and they don't feel that anymore. Some people have insulin pumps that are supposed to let them know. There's a delay on the pump, and they will go down faster than that alarm. So it's literally life-threatening. They can go into seizures, they can die. What we do is we train for our dogs to smell that low blood sugar as it's starting to go down, before it gets into the danger range. And whether you haven't had lunch or whatever, it's a universal scent on your breath when you have low blood sugar. So we have people, clients and whatever, that will, when they know they're low, they'll breathe into gauze pads for us, and we freeze those. And then when our trainers are working with the dogs, they'll hide it on their body and make it a game to find that scent. So they can tell from across the room. If someone back there was low, they could smell it from here. They've got a great sense of smell. So they will alert their person by pawing or poking them or whatever and let them know to check their blood sugar. If they're not responsive to that, they'll go get glucose tablets or a juice box. If the person's unresponsive, they will go get help if someone else is in the house. So it's the most immediately life-saving of the 5 types that we train for. The fifth type we train is autism assist, and that's for children with autism and their families. It's usually for the smaller children that are of flight risk. They see something and just take off after it, and they don't realize that there's danger, there's traffic or whatever, or they disappear very quickly in a store. And so our dogs are tethered. The dog is tethered to the child, but the parent also has a leash. It's not a Lassie situation. So as soon as the child bolts and the dog feels tension on the leash, they will sit or down long enough for the parent to get control of the situation again. Also, when the kids are out and they're in a really high, loud, like a mall, sensory overload is a big thing with them, just so much going on, and that's usually when they have a meltdown. And touch is really big with the kids, so if they can pet the dog and just kind of bring it all back down. If they're at a restaurant, it's really loud and noisy, they'll disappear under the table with the dog, kind of regroup, and then come back up again. This is a really big deal for these parents because as the kids get older, their worlds become smaller. Because it's one thing for a 6-year-old to have a meltdown, you pick them up and you leave. Very different when they're 12 and 13 and they're much stronger. They don't go as many places. So it's opened up the world for these families to continue to be out in the world. They're interacting with people. People are looking at their dog. Oh, what a nice dog. What's your dog's name? And they're interacting with people as well. So it's really, really wonderful. We've heard some really great stories about how that's really helped the kids. One was it never occurred to me about dentists, but yes, if it was bad enough, I go to the dentist. But with a child with autism, let's tip you back and have somebody fool around with your mouth. Not a fun thing at all, major meltdowns. And there was one that she would just get so upset to the point of throwing up. She just would work herself up into such a frenzy. And they brought her autism assist dog, the first next dentist appointment she had, and he laid across her legs and a couple whimpers, and that was it. Everybody cried. The dentist, the dental hygienist, the mom, everybody, because this was a really, really big deal that she could sit through that and deal with that. And so it just is one little example of how that difference is made in their lives. We don't charge for our dogs. The clients or applicants pay a $50 application fee, and that's it. It costs us on average about $25,000 from start to finish per dog. Last year we did 42 teams, and hopefully we'll do at least that or more this year. So we serve the states of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And we also have prison programs that we work with. We're always in need of volunteers and puppy raisers and things in the Twin Cities, but as the demand grows, because we probably got about 180 people on our wait list right now for a dog. So we want to make sure we get as many dogs reasonably trained as possible. So we have started some relationships with some prisons. We've been with a few of them for at least 12 or 13 years now. And it's been a win-win situation for us and for them. 3 are in Minnesota. One has the best job ever. That's Duluth Hermantown. They get the young puppies at 5 weeks with mom. They head up to prison. Our trainer, the Whelping Home volunteers call her the puppy bandit. She comes and takes the puppies with mom, and they go up to Duluth. And those inmates up there, it's more kind of a federal prison camp, but they will work on potty training and crate training and very, very basic obedience and just kind of get them going. Then mom heads back to her home, and the puppies come back to us. And then they'll go to either a puppy raiser, who is a volunteer that raises dogs here in the Twin Cities, like the guide dogs. They'll raise them till they're 1.5 years, teach them good house manners, how to behave well in public. If they're meant for one of our prison programs, they'll go to what we call a Great Start home. And that's actually what I'm doing right now. And that is a puppy that is slated for one of our other prison programs, they can't go to their at least 18 weeks because they have to hold it through the night. Because you can't imagine an inmate can't be knocking on a cell door saying, I need to potty my puppy. So they have to hold it through the night. So while I have Paxton right now, I'm just taking him out in public because this is a very formative time for puppies. And to get them out and expose him, we went to the Halloween store yesterday. So that was really exciting. He did really well, actually. But just expose him to as much as possible before he heads up there. While they're at the prison programs, we have one in Sandstone, one in Waseca, and then we have 2 others in Wisconsin, which is Stanley, which is Eau Claire, and Jackson, which is Black River Falls. Those inmates, it's 2 inmates who are assigned per puppy or per dog, and they live with them in their cell. and they teach them the skills, the obedience and all that kind of thing, and they take it very seriously. The puppies still get out because we go on furlough. They still have to get out and get exposed to homes and vacuums and being out in public as they're growing up. So they get out at least twice a month. At a year of age, they come back to our facility and they go to what we call finishing homes. And those are other volunteers that are taking them on the tail end, per se, of their training before they come in for final. And that's something, so you got a dog that's really well obedience trained. It's awesome. I've done that too. I just finished Miles, so he came in. But he still needs to get out and do exposure and go on buses and go on light rail and go to the mall and all those things. So that's what I did with Miles while he was with me for about 8 months. He just came into final training. So he's at our kennel in New Hope. And so at that point, we kind of equate it to going to college and they're picking a major. Because we don't decide ahead of time, what they're going to be. So he's got a roommate, he's doing good. Our in-house trainers are now working with him. What does he like to do? What's his niche? Because each of the 5 types has a special talent. If they're going to be diabetes assists, they have a really good sense of smell and be persistent. If they're autism assists, they have to be larger, they have to be really easygoing and not fazed by loud meltdowns and like kids. And so that's where they're starting to see what do they like to do. Then they start looking at the clients that we have accepted and waiting for a dog and who's going to make a good match. And then that's where it goes from there. And then they match with a client, they do training, and then they're certified. So it's kind of the life of our puppies and how that goes. I'd like to hand it over to Mark because he can talk about once that happens and the match is made and kind of what happened, and maybe he can show a couple things maybe that Una might do.
Hello. Hey. So I'm Mark Hawkins. Nice to meet everybody, informally of course, but it is true that you do only pay $50 because that is exactly what I paid, nothing more. After you do get your dog, you get to pay regular things like food, vet bills, those kinds of things. Those are all up to us, but we do get them with their shots, everything else. Is that better? Is it better though? Okay. So this is actually Uno James. Real name is Uno. My brother died just prior to getting him, so I took my brother's middle name and attached it to him. So that's why it's Uno James. It's kind of unusual to have a long dog name, but it's not just like with parents, If I'm mad at him, I don't go Uno James. It's just his regular name. I always call him Uno James. So, and I'm never mad at him. So he's always a good pup. Mobility assist is what he helps me with. I can't turn my head sideways, up, down, back, forth, anything like that. As you can probably tell, you were saying some invincible disabilities. Mine is more noticeable. So sideways, I'm always looking up. That's kind of the thing. But he helps me pick up anything that I drop. It can be pennies on a slippery floor. He might push it around a little bit, but he can pick up pennies, paper clips, pens, pencils, basically anything I drop. Somebody else was showing off picking up a 3 or 4 pound or 5 pound weight. He can pick those up in his mouth as well. I just happen not to do much of physical activity anymore, but he can. But he does get the laundry out of the dryer for me. It's 1 sock at a time usually, and dogs do have saliva in their mouth, so sometimes it's a little bit moist even after out of the dryer. So, but he will get it, and he does get a little bit bored if I have a full laundry load in there. He'll get 1 sock at a time and then get bored after about 10 items. So I do have to bring him back and back to the dryer again after a little bit of a break for him, where it's like new and improved, and now it's fun again. So I also wait for the dryer to cool down a little bit, because otherwise it's like sticking his head in an oven. So you have to learn that. They don't appreciate that very much at all. So I will throw out a couple of different things for him to pick up. He likes doing this. He gets pretty dang excited, so he'll all of a sudden pounce. He won't just go pick it up. He'll run and boom. right? Yeah. He's looking at me like, oh boy, I get to play. Different things he likes to pick up. I usually don't throw my phone, just so you know. But he does pick that up. He will pick it up. I say, find my phone, and he'll go around the house and pick it up. Uno, back, come. I didn't tell you to leave yet. You're so excited. He's excited. This is what he does. If I drop a sock early in the morning, without me telling him, he'll go pick it up for me. Bring it. Give. Good. Hey, Uno, get it. There he goes. See? Oh, yeah, see? It's thrilling for him. So sometimes I actually on purpose drop my socks or whatever else just so he has a little bit of fun. Uno. Uno, James. Get it. Okay, bring it. Sit. Good boy. Hold. And he won't give it to me until I tell him the response. Nope, get it. Hey, he's smelling something good, I think. Uno. Uno, James. Get it. Okay, sit. Oh, good boy. Hold. Okay, give. Good boy. I haven't done this hide the phone for a while. We'll see if we can find it. Uno, find my phone. Where's my phone? He will go around. This is what he does at the house, too. Find my phone. Might take him just a little bit. I'll kind of hint him at it. Uno. Well, he went to my jacket. Find my phone. Hey. Come. Come. Where is it? Where's my phone? I make sure to have a good cover. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah, you're a good boy. You have to give him his pets. That's like a treat, too.
Do you want to
So.
explain why we do the hold? Why you do a leash versus
Let me get your leash. You're too excited. Say again.
why, maybe explain why we have them hold, why that's important for you, because he doesn't hold and just doesn't shove it at you.
Oh, yeah. Well, since I can't see things, for me it's important that he holds it so I know where he's at and then I can grab it as opposed to just dropping it. It could be a fragile item. And then no use in picking it up if he's only going to break it by dropping it. So that's why it's helpful for me. Leave it is another wonderful command. Like I was in the theater the other night, and leave it is very important for all the popcorn on the floor. Yeah. And I try to make sure I'm in a aisle that has not had spilled butter popcorn, because you'll look the entire the floor. And it's easy to say leave it for a couple of kernels of popcorn, but the butter is another thing. I mean, they are still a dog, so they love sweets. He went right over to the donuts over here as well, if you didn't notice that, sniffing. Like, can I? And he looks up at me, no, Yeah, he's pretty good. And he's very good about doing side or heel. Either way is helpful. Sometimes if I'm pulling the door open this side with my right hand, I want him on my left so it doesn't end up hitting him or bonking him in the butt when the door comes shut. And other times I'm pulling with my left hand, I want him on this side. So they're all trained in doing that. He is actually a sandstone trained dog. So I get to say my dog was in prison, and they look at me like, what? What do you mean he was in prison? What did he do wrong? So he's a good puppy. Uno, side. Sit. Oh, good boy. Oh. He's good.
I see that bus with the gentleman. Do you want to touch on the importance of
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of people think that the cape is like a magic no pet. When somebody sees a cape, that is true, but they're always working, actually. So even if they don't have a cape on, if you see a dog in the store, they're probably helper dogs, service dogs in some way. What I tell people with sometimes the kids will ask, can I pet the dog? And I say, well, sometimes you can tell them, for like my example, I'm disabled, you can tell something's wrong with me. But other folks have low blood sugar, there's something wrong in their blood, which can make them sick. So I just keep it low level for the kids and say, you can't tell with them. So if the dog is paying attention to you and being petted by them, they're not paying attention to the person that the dog is with, and that can be life-threatening to them. So that's the example I give. Same with seizures. You can't tell by looking at someone if they're going to have a seizure or not. So those are the simple examples I give. Also to the parents, and then they can explain that to other people, and it kind of gets a word of mouth going as far as why not petting service dogs.
We also talk about the importance, even with Mark, is if he let Uno say hi to people, he's going to surge forward and whatever, and that's going to knock Mark right off his feet. Dogs are dogs, and so of course they're going to like to get petted and things like that. So I can tell when a client is letting people say hi to the dog a lot because they aren't paying attention to their handler, and they're scanning, going, who's going to love me? And so they're not paying attention to their. So, I mean, you can always ask someone if they can say hi to their dog, but don't be hurt if they say no, because it could be they have been shopping all day long and it's been a really long day and they just want to go home. It could be a new team that they're brand new, so they're really getting used to each other, and so distraction's a little bit higher. And there's some dogs that can really keep it together. They can be petted and then just stay professional and go on their way, and others, their brain will fall right out of their head. And they'll be like, oh, it's a lovey time, and they'll lay down and just lose it completely. So we kind of just ask the people is when there's a vest on is that they aren't to be petted. And that's also with the puppies. It's kind of like right now I have a 15-week-old, so I kind of have to pick and choose when he's behaving well, for a moment. I might let somebody say hi to him to practice, because there are distractions and it will happen. But if he's just being a little naughty boy, that's not the time that I'm going to be saying, yes, you can pet him, because that's just going to ramp him more because he won't be able to focus on me. So the Halloween store was a really good example, because there were masks and animated things and children running by, and it was a little overload. So we were only there about 20 minutes and then we left. But it was very good exposure for the dogs, because it gets chaotic in our human world, and they have to be able to roll with it. And not every dog makes it in the program, due to those things. So they have to be able to, like Uno, just kind of roll with things. Does anybody have any questions for me or Mark?
How old is this dog?
How old is your dog?
Mine is 4.
4, very
Born
young.
them just a couple of weeks before 2.
Okay.
Typically around 2 years old is when you are matched up with your service dog.
That black lab.
English black lab, yes. Yep. Little longer hairs here and there on him. Yeah. Still sheds a lot like a regular lab.
Mark, did you get training along with the dog?
I did. Yep. That's a good question. Did I get training before taking him, so to speak? I did. I was matched up with him. It is kind of like dating. You do have to actually work well together.
Yeah.
Can't just date anybody. You have to actually match. And Uno and I had, I think, 6 times together before I was able to take him home with me. Yep.
2 years you got the dog?
2 years, yep. A little over 2 years.
I'm curious about the muzzle and the collar. Is this typical? That kind of harness you have in?
Oh, it's actually called a leader, and it's like a horse leader. The horse has the leader on their nose, and it actually is just more of a steering mechanism. He can open up his mouth wide open and eat and everything with this on, but it's just like a leader for a horse. If I pull this way, his head goes this way. And they're actually very, very strong animals, even though he's really mellow. but he's very, very strong.
Gentle leaders were developed by actually a veterinarian at the University of Minnesota years ago, R.K. Anderson, along with a trainer. And basically, like he said, it's a halter on a horse. So instead of cutting across their neck, it's guiding their head by the back of their head and this way. And so it helps from pulling. So when we have clients that maybe might not have a lot of hand strength or have some balance issues, it's kind of a little added insurance that their dog won't pull and knock them over. Not that the dog can't pull. I've seen puppies put their face into it and go, but it's an extra added help for our clients. And a lot of people use them in their everyday lives too. There's some pretty strong dogs out there, so they'll start with it. So yeah, it's called a gentle leader or a halty is what they're called. Yeah.
What breeds do you train?
She asked what breeds we train. Probably about 75% of our dogs are Labradors. They're very diverse. They really, they'll roll with anything. They work with any of the 5 types that we train for. They like food, which is very important with training. They love people. They transfer well. So a lot of them are labs. We have some people who have allergies. So we have standard poodles and doodles in the program as well. They're wicked smart. You gotta keep them busy. They are very smart dogs. We have some golden retrievers, some smooth coat collies, which are not like Lassie. They have a shorter coat because that would be a really lot of coat. A Lassie coat would be hard for a client to take care of. So they're a little shorter coat. So we have some of those in the program as well. Hearing assist dogs and diabetes assist dogs don't need to be big. So we have some dogs that are smaller from the shelters and rescues. Right now we have a little terrier who's a little Chihuahua Terrier mix that he's a hearing assist dog. So, and he rules that kennel of all the labs because he's a terrier. So yes, he has a girlfriend, but he rules. So the hearing assist dogs just need to be really interested in sound. And you know those dogs, they know of everything happening within a half-mile radius of your house. Not that they're barking, but they're very, very alert. That's what makes a good hearing assist dog. So size doesn't have to matter with them. And a lot of people live in smaller homes, and so it's nice to have a smaller sized dog. But yeah, it depends. We have our own breeding program of Labradors. So we can kind of, as best we can, guarantee the health and longevity of our dogs. We're part of a breeding consortium with Assistance Dogs International. So other guide dog organizations and other organizations like ours around the world, we give each other dogs to have the best dogs possible for guide work or for mobility assist work. So it's been interesting. Some of the dogs we get, some of our dogs have gone as far as Taiwan, to Canada, US, and some dogs have come back to us. So from other organizations. So it's kind of interesting how that works. But we started with rescue and shelter dogs, and we will always have them in our program to some point. So.
How are you funded?
Yeah.
Yes, how we're funded. We do not get any federal or state support. It's mostly individual donations, but then the Lions and Rotary also donate to us as well. About 25% of our income is Lions. So, and I'm a Lion, so yay. So, but yeah. Yes.
What happens now if it's an older person has the dog, they die? What do you do with that dog then? Can it go to another person or?
She asked if a client passes away and the dog, what happens with the dog? And that has happened because some of our clients are not in the best of health. There's a reason why they have our dogs, some of them. It doesn't happen quite as much that way as the other, that the dog gets older and passes. But if that happens, it depends on the age of the dog. If they're a little older, maybe 4 or 5 or older, is usually the family members will keep the dog, and we won't place, because he's too old to be placed with another client. Or if they can't take care of him, we will find a home for him. If they're younger and something, God forbid, happens to the client and they're still maybe 3 or 4 years of age, we might consider, if a client is waiting for a dog and it has what it takes and has the temperament to switch, we might do that. It's happened a few times, but not. Usually we just retire them. And that kind of touches to when our dogs get older. We check once a year with our clients, how are they doing? Do they need any help? They send in a veterinary report that the dog's doing okay. As the dogs age, if they're getting older, they will call our staff and just say, you know, I think he's slowing down, or he doesn't want to get on Metro Mobility anymore, or, you know, there's just certain things. And we'll talk to them about retiring the dog. And at that point, whether they want to just wait until their dog passes before they apply for another dog, or they need to apply right away. Diabetes assist, they need that. They need that. It's crucial that they have a diabetes assist dog. At that point, usually family members or friends will adopt the dog. Actually, we had one of our board members, Mary, just her dog Ebony just went, you know, I just don't want to work anymore. She just was very blatant about it. And so she applied for another diabetes assist dog right away. She was matched with Maui. And actually her boss loves Ebony. And so Ebony just kind of on her own just started going to the boss's office and made the transition on her own. So it didn't really quite happen that way, but it worked really well. And so her boss says she sees Ebony, and Ebony's happy to see her and is fine with Maui. And so it worked out really, really well. But we will make sure that our dogs, if they're retired, that there's a place for them, whether it's a home we find or whatever. So I can't believe no one has asked the question that everybody asks. What happens to the dogs that don't make it in the program? Which not every dog makes it in the program because they don't all have what it takes to be an assistance dog. And it could be due to temperament. They don't have what it takes to be out in public and things like that. I give an example. I was raising a Sheltie that you could not convince him that children were not weird aliens. And he didn't transition well from store to here. He just, he was conflicted, was probably the best adjective. He wasn't happy doing it. And by the age of 6 months, we were watching him going, you know, he's not happy. He's not doing this. He's doing it for me, but he's not, and they have to want to do it. They have to, you know, you see Uno wagging his tail and he's wanting to do this. They have to want to do it because the client can't make them do it. So we don't say they flunk, we say they career change. And he career changed to be a pet. And so once he found his home and the kingdom never changed, he was very happy. And that's okay, you know, because like I said, the dogs have to want to do this. Sometimes they might career change due to physical. Before they're placed with a client, they will get hip checks, eye checks, depending on the breed, heart checks, all those things before they're placed with, because we want to place as healthy a dog as possible with the client. So they might not make it due to that. Hip and elbow dysplasia is a big thing with labs, allergies as well. So if they don't make it, then we do give the puppy raiser first choice of adopting the dog if they want to. Otherwise, we will find a home. We've got a thing on our website. You can apply to adopt a dog that's been a career change. So you've got a dog that's potty trained, obedience trained. You know, he knows a lot of stuff. So that's the way.
Are they neutered then?
Yes, all our dogs are spayed or neutered. If they're not in the breeding program, everybody's spayed and neutered. So, yeah. Yeah, question.
The expenses for the dog, since it's a medical expense, can that be written off on taxes?
She asked if it's a medical expense because it'd be written off on taxes.
Not that I'm aware
Not that-
of. Not that I'm aware of.
Because I think Betty does.
Huh?
We can try, yeah.
I might have to redo my taxes then.
Doctor and tax preparer.
Yeah, I can redo that. Another one of the items where a dog can't make it is if they have some sort of phobia. Phobias, right. I was training with a different dog before I had Uno, and all of a sudden the dog was very afraid of elevators. So that dog was career changed, and did go back with the puppy raiser, I believe. And so, you know, kind of like humans that way. Yeah, so, but a person that has a service dog has to be able to go into elevators. Some buildings have elevators or tons of stairs, and you have to be able to get up to the 13th. You need an elevator, so you have to be able to get in it. Related to that somewhat is the dogs can never go on escalators because their toenails might get caught. So, yeah, so you don't want to ever see that.
Good point on the escalators, yes. Any other questions about the dogs, the puppies, prison programs, any of that stuff? We're starting 2 new prison programs by the end of the year, which is very exciting because of the wait list with our clients and things like that. Rochester, my puppy right now is going down to Rochester Medical Correction. It's a prison, but it's for inmates who are ill And then they have inmates who work there to help those who are ill. So those are the inmates that are going to have the puppies. So 7 are going down in November, and then we'll be doing another young puppy program in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. So they're growing, but it's been really interesting with the prison programs. Like I had said, it's a win-win. The inmates learn persistence or consistency and accomplishment, unconditional love, things that they may not ever have experienced growing up. And some do get released depending on which prison they're at and their length of sentence. And I ran into, we've had 2 actually that have one has spoken at a graduation, came to a graduation, so he got to see his dog graduate. A second one I was talking to, we have a dog run out in the front, and at the time there was a building being built across from us. And one of the workers wandered over and he's watching the dog. He goes, "Oh, which dog is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's Oli." And he says, "Oh." He says, "Well, I used to volunteer with you." And at the time I was a volunteer coordinator, and I felt so bad because I didn't remember who he was. I'm like, "Oh, wonderful. Thank you for helping." He says, "Well," he says, I was at Faribault, which was a prison we were working with at the time. And I was at Faribault, and I wasn't really good, but I did." And he named off every dog that he had trained. And he's now holding a job, and he says, "Well, I would foster, but I'm traveling a lot with the job." And I'm like, "No, you're doing exactly what you need to do, and thank you very much for what you did for us and everything else." And so it was very cool to kind of run across that and run across a couple guards too. They're like, "Oh, we have dogs in our prison that are," and it brings the tension level in the units down. I mean, everybody. It's not just the inmates, but everybody. It just keeps things good, and we've never had to worry. We've never worried. I've talked with our trainers. We've ever worried about our puppies being there. And she said no. She says they are very serious about the dogs and what happens to them, and very, very conscientious about it. And so it's been really kind of a neat program to have.
How did you get involved with this organization?
How did I get involved? I was a travel agent and looking for a complete career change. I was volunteering at the Humane Society and saw, back when things were posted in the Trib 19 years ago, saw an ad for administrative assistant and volunteer coordinator, and answered the ad. And at the time we had 3 staff and in South Minneapolis. And now, 19 years later, we have 32 full and part-time staff, and yeah, amazing how it all grew. I mean, when I started, we were just doing mobility and hearing. Now we're doing 5 types. It's just been amazing to see the growth, and very, very cool. Yeah.
When a dog
Oops,
goes
sorry.
into a home for training as a puppy, how long does that dog stay with that training home?
She asked when a puppy goes into a home. It varies, because as I mentioned, the Great Start, they might be there for a couple months before they go to the prison program. The final training at the end, when they come out of prison, might be 7 to 8 months. If they're doing the puppy raising, which is kind of the whole enchilada, that is starting at 10 weeks, and they keep until they're about 1.5 years, about 18 months or so. And then they come in for final training, depending on their level of maturity. Some are like the Cheez-It commercial. Some are ready, and then some are not, and so you got to wait a little bit. But yep, so those are kind of the length. And then there's some short-term fostering opportunities as well. Yeah, you had a question.
When my children were home, we had a German Shepherd, and he was incredibly intelligent. One example, we had a tree right outside the kitchen, and in a bad storm, it split. So we cut the tree down and had to hire somebody to grind the stump out. And I told one of my sons, I said, when the guys come here, put the dog downstairs in the storeroom, because he isn't going to like the machine running out there. So he did. And he went back out in the garage again, and it wasn't too long he heard the dog barking. So he went to look, and here the dog was inside the kitchen barking out through the patio door. He went downstairs to look, and the dog he destroyed the knob getting it open. And when he got to the top of the stairs, he knew how to do it without ruining it. And there he was barking. Another time, we left him home because we went out of town for Thanksgiving. And when we came home, previously I asked my brother-in-law to let the dog out and to feed him while we were gone. So I asked him, did you have any problem? And he said, well, one time my son went down to do it, he said, and he didn't close the patio door. He said, and the dog could just go in and out as he pleased. And so then, what I discovered was that the dog would go over to the patio door, take his paw, flip the lever, use his nose, and open a heavy wooden peach tree door and go outside all by himself.
Ooh,
And I had
lucky
to
he was
call-
home when you got home.
I had to call my brother-in-law and say, you better apologize to your son because the dog's doing it on his own.
Yep.
And I had to put something there because we weren't gonna be home, and he was a house
Keep him
dog, but, oh, if I threw a steak bone into his food dish, he'd run over there and I'd say, stay, and he would sit down like this guy, and he'd look at it, and saliva
Drool.
would drip from his mouth. And then when I would wait a while, and I'd say, okay, and then he hit it,
Yep.
but he was wonderful.
Yep, if I give the dogs too many treats, the lab drool. And like, oh, Lord,
Yeah.
bring a paper towel. We have 2 cats actually that live at the facility, or facility cats. They teach the dogs respect. They have claws. And one doesn't like dogs, so she runs and she'll swat at him. The other, Marvin, thinks he's the dog, sits right in front of him. They're working with a client. He's sitting, following them, stalking them. He can open the door to when at night, so they don't set off alarms. We put them in our training apartment, and it has kind of a lever handle. He can open that and let himself out, and so we had to put a deadbolt on the door. Those trainers train him to do naughty things. So, yeah.
Do you have any branches like in Wisconsin, the Milwaukee area or anything?
She asked if we have any branches in the Milwaukee or Wisconsin area. We have our offices here in New Hope. But when we have clients that are outstate Minnesota or in Wisconsin, we hire contract trainers that are in those areas. So if there's a client that is living there, they will train with them there. They might come to our facility for a few days to train. We built a guest apartment so they can stay. They don't have to incur a cost of hotels. So they can stay for a couple days, meet their dog for the first time. They might train with their client here for their trainer a few days, but then they go home. They go home with the dog because that's where they're living. That's where they're going to be. So we want to train them in their environment. So then that's where we have a contract trainer in their area so they can work with them. And then when they're ready to certify, we think that all their skills are down, they're ready to go, then our client trainers will go up and certify them and make sure we tape them, make sure all their skills are great. We do a public access test to make sure they're well behaved in public, and do all those things, and then they're official. They're officially certified. One thing I wanted to mention, we have a graduation coming up. It's open to the public, so I put some cards over there. It's on the 27th of October, and it's from 1 to 2, and you're welcome to come and watch if you'd like to. And our client, they come up on stage. Mark has done it. He's done. We celebrate the teams that have certified in the last quarter. And so we tell their story. They come on stage. The puppy raiser comes back. They come on stage with the dog. They kind of ceremoniously hand the leash back over. We cry, and then we'll have cake. So, but it's just really nice closure. The puppy raisers got to see, my dog's doing great. He's really happy. And as happy as they are to see, they get a little brief reunion with their puppy raiser or their foster. They see their client on stage, and they're like, I gotta go. Here's my person. Let's go. And so they know their person. They might give us, all they can, but they'll give the clients 110%. So, yeah.
Do you have a special food that you recommend for the dogs?
At the kennel, she asked if we have special food that we give them. Nutrisource donates food to us, so that's a really, really big help for us because we have a lot of dogs and it's a lot to feed. And it's a higher quality food, so we get that. Do you still do Nutrisource?
Nutrisource, too.
Yeah.
It's easier on their stomachs to maintain with the same food. So that's how I looked at it.
Yeah. You can switch off to any other higher quality too, but just ease of and cost and things like that.
You could mention the apartment.
Yeah, the apartment.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and how the dogs get used to it. Apartment living.
Yes, apartment living. Yeah.
At Can Do Canines, they do have an actual apartment with different sounds that the dogs can get used to while being there, like actual living with somebody. There's the vacuums, the refrigerators, learn how to pull those open. Like Uno does that for me, pulls the freezer open, close it, he closes it, pulls the fridge open, things like that they can do right on site in an actual apartment with the couches and all those things. And the couches, by the way, then they can say off or keep off, you know. So like Uno is never on my furniture. They're taught not to do that very specifically, which is great for a shedding dog. So I like that very, very much. Yes.
And that's the thing is that there's some rules with our puppy raisers and fosters. One of them is not on the furniture. Once a client gets the dog, they can make the decision whether they want him on the furniture, but it's easier to do that than untrain it because once it's ingrained, they always want to be up there.
Why does
So
a dog shape like that? What is
he's
it?
just kind of readjusting his vest and just kind of getting it back in place because he was sitting. Yeah.
He likes to shake.
If a client goes in the hospital, does the dog go with him temporarily, or?
It's a good question. He asked if a client has to go in the hospital, what happens with the dog? What happens is, well, number one, we make sure that they have an emergency contact person. So if they can't take care of the dog, which is usually the case if they're in the hospital, someone else can take the dog. You cannot expect hospital staff to take care of the dog for you there. That's not their job. However, if you have a family member who can bring the dog to the hospital with you, be with you, and yes, they can do that. They can be there in the room with you and whatever. It's just that if you can't physically handle them at that point, you have to have someone who can, and it cannot be hospital staff. So pottying and all that stuff would not be a hospital's role in that. But it's a really good question because that has come up and expectations in certain clients, and we had to kind of let them know that no, this is what happens if you want the dog with you.
I did happen to have a medical emergency not too long ago, a couple months ago, and Una was with me, and I needed to go to the hospital. So I did get there, and that person at the hospital was kind enough to bring him outside for me. And then I could hear him actually coming back. I was laying on the gurney in the room after getting some tests. I could hear him coming back as she was going, whoa, 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 because he was pulling big time. He wanted to be back with me. That's where he belongs. And a couple of times I've had to go to an appointment where I actually couldn't take him with because I knew the noise would be just bad. So I left him home only for about a half hour, and he was actually really mad at me. I mean, he was nudging me, snorting. I mean, he was not happy. So that hospital person was great. She brought him out. They love the dogs. It's the overnight kind of thing where you need a family member or a friend or somebody who loves dogs, obviously, and can take care of them for you until you get out.
Are male or female dogs, which one's more trainable, or is there a difference, or?
Yes, if male or female dogs, which is better, and really no difference. It's more temperament than anything else. Is if they're some are more headstrong than others, but it doesn't really go by sex really. It's yeah. I've had both. Yeah.
Your program is different from a seeing eye dog. That's an older program, I guess.
Yeah, he asked about the seeing eye, our program being different from the seeing eye dog. Very much, that's a guide dog training. The guide dog started the whole assistance dog thing. So the guide dog schools have been around a lot longer than the rest of us have been around. And so they kind of set the precedent in a lot of things. The other ones started, I think the first hearing dog, I'm guessing hearing dog was back in the 80s, early 80s, maybe 70s. They first started doing hearing dogs. Not very many and not very well known, and then it just kind of progressed from there. And they're much more, the guide dogs are much more established, and so they really won't see very many organizations starting as a guide dog because there's just so many that you can do. And so the closest to here is Leader Dogs in Michigan, is the closest guide dogs school. With the other types, they're growing. Everything is growing, whether it's PTSD or there's allergy detection and other things that are just coming up, as we find out how smart these dogs are. Some are detecting cancer, different things like that, which isn't assistance dog work, but just the talents of dogs and how they can help people. And so it's been very interesting over the years to see how much it's grown and what the dogs could do. Because when we first started our diabetes assist program, it was a pet dog that was alerting his person when he was going low, but he didn't know how to make it solid and reliable. So he came to us and asked, and so we decided to kind of explore it because it was very intriguing. Our director had a client who had a hearing dog that was diabetic a few years prior, and she had diabetes and she ended up dying in her sleep. She went low and she died in her sleep, and he remembered feeling so bad at the time that he couldn't do anything about that. That there was some way of doing it, but he didn't know how to do that. And so when this came up and this person approached us, he was very much on board with, let's explore this. And it wasn't pretty, but we all kind of guessed and trained along and got it to, where he needed it to be. And over the years, we've really, really learned what makes a good diabetes assist dog. It's not just that they can smell, but to be persistent. Because when people are low, they're crabby and whatever. And so if the dog's letting them know they're low and they're like, leave me alone, go away. They have to be persistent. No, you're low, and I'm going to keep bugging you until. We had one client that she was helping. We had two clients one works for us. Her dog was next to me behind a kitty gate in her office. The other one, her dog was there, and they were working on a newsletter together. Ebony's bugging her, letting her know she should check. She checked. Well, okay, I'm a little low, but I'm not bad. No, you're good. I'm good. So 5 minutes later, Ebony's bugging her again. She's like, I'm fine. 5 minutes after that, the other dog jumps the fence, comes around the corner, and Shelly says, okay, 2 dogs are telling you you're low. Check your sugar again. And she did. And she was getting down into that low rate within 10 minutes. She was getting into a dangerous phase, but it's like, slap you on the face. 2 dogs have been to tell you you're low. So it's amazing what they can do, and being persistent. We realized that was a quality that the dogs needed. It wasn't just that talent. So yeah.
I noticed Uno didn't get a treat when she did all this stuff. Is that part of training too, that they?
In a perfect world, yes. They start with treating, and we try to wean that off a little bit. Sometimes if we're in a kind of a more higher distracting kind of thing, is we might whip out the treats. It depends on the client. But yeah, I answer that.
Well, sometimes then because their sense of smell is so high, normally he's just going to always want to be in that same side as your treats. And sometimes you need them this side. Then they kind of gravitate over there and like, no, this side. So it's more of can be a nuisance in that way. But I do give them treats, but it's always kibble. It's never table food. Because again, I want his stomach to be normal. Therefore, his business outside is normal. Yeah, I don't want abnormal business outside. That's not good at all.
That's very tactful. But thank you so much for inviting us to come talk to you today.